Well, good morning, Peace Church. Thank you for joining us in worship this morning. At this time, we want to invite you to stand as we join together in singing.
When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, I won't be shaken, I won't be shaken, 'cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to the lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. Oh, I won't be shaken, I won't be shaken, 'cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Standing in your love. There's power that can break up every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. Oh, there's resurrection power that can save me. There's power in your name. There's power in your name. Oh, there's power that can break up every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. Oh, there's resurrection power that can save me. There's power in your name. Power in your name. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Come on, sing it with me, everybody. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Standing in your love. Standing in your love. Standing in your I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me. All my days I've been held in your hands. From the moment that I wake up till I lay my head, oh, I I will sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. I love your voice. You have led me through the fire, and in darkest nights, you are close like no other. I've known you as a father, I've known you as a friend, and I have lived in the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. Your goodness is running after, it's running after me. With my life laid down, I surrender now. I give you everything. Your goodness is running, it keeps running after me. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God. Yeah, I'm gonna sing of the goodness of God.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will break. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry. These bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord.
Praise to you. You are the breath in our lungs. Your spirit is breath. You breathe life into our soul. So today we are grateful for that gift of life. Last week we celebrated the resurrection of our Lord Jesus Christ, and that is brand new life, life in the Spirit. And God, fill us with your Spirit. Fill us with that life. Fill us with that breath. God, we desire it so deeply in our hearts. Lord, there's times in our life when we go through difficult moments and we get discouraged and we get down. Sometimes it's coming off of a high like Easter. Sometimes it's because of a broken relationship. Sometimes it's because of stress in our finances. Whatever it is that you bring today, whatever discouragement that you bring today, realize that Jesus is your hope and your help. He's pouring his breath into your spirit. And this is not the end of the story. This is not the last line that is written in your play. He sees a bigger picture, and he loves you, and he has more for you. Hold on to that hope. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You may be seated, and I want you to turn your attention to our screens and just watch some of the great things that are happening here at Peace.
Hi, Peace Church. My name's Christina Albrecht.
And I'm Scott Drummond, and we're so glad you're joining us for worship today.
If you're new with us, we want to welcome you and let you know that we have a gift for you at the welcome desks. So if you want to stop by either one of them at the front or the back door on your way out, or you can text NEW to the number on the screen and get a coffee gift card.
Or if you call Peace Church your home, please fill out the blue card, drop it in the offering basket on the way out. Or if you're watching online, or just text the word HERE to the number on the screen. It lets us know who's been worshiping with us today, and ultimately helps us to provide the best care we can for those that call Peace Church their home.
Some of you may notice on your way in here this morning that we have not one, but two very large trailers in our parking lot. Those are actually being filled with donations for our annual Trash to Treasure sale. It's a big garage sale, basically, that we have here every year, and all the proceeds go to different missions. And so the first drop-off date is actually today, April 16th, from 8:30 to 11:30. So maybe after you watch this, you can pack your car full of some stuff and drop it off. But the next dates are also April 30th, May 7th, May 28th. The list just goes on. So you can grab one of these flyers out at Peace Outreach. Just make a note in your phone, and we would love for you to donate items for our sale.
This time every year, we also have a time to celebrate seniors that are graduating. And so we're going to have a special celebration Sunday on May the 21st. And so if you are a senior or taking responsibility for a senior you know, we're going to invite you to get in touch with the church office. We just want to know the name and where they're graduating from, maybe where they're headed, and anything else?
Next steps of what we're
and
doing.
A picture of
Yes.
them. It'll just help us celebrate them on that Sunday.
And then I have exciting news for you.
Yes?
Today, VBS registration is officially open.
Oh, fantastic.
So I know many of you have been looking forward to this. You can register either in our lobby. There is a Galaxy themed table that you can sign up at, or you can register on the front page of our website. But we have a message from Carolyn for you all.
Hello, Planet Earth. Vacation Bible School season at Peace Church has officially blasted off. VBS is such a special time for children in our community, ages 4 years old through 6th grade. We come together to learn and worship about God. The kids build an everlasting relationship with volunteers, new friends, some astronauts, and Jesus throughout the week. My name is Carolyn Lewandowski, lead astronaut and the Children's Ministry Coordinator at Peace Church. This year's VBS is called Stellar, Shine Jesus Light, which is a space theme and includes all the Bible buddies from planets, stars, and comets. It's gonna be a blast. The program launches July 10th through the 14th from 9 a.m. to noon. We're expecting 250 kids throughout the galaxy to come to Peace Church, and we're looking for astronauts, volunteers, to help serve those kids. If you're feeling the calling in your heart, please be a part of the special week and click up to sign up. Volunteers enjoy no registration fees and a nursery for the littles. Lastly, VBS registration is going to hit this galaxy mid-April, so be sure to check out Facebook, Church Bulletin, and even peaceumc.org. We will even have an early bird rate. So we can't wait to see everyone this summer. So if you have any questions at all, be sure to contact the church office. Have a great day, and we will see you in space.
Also coming up this summer, in June, we are having a mission trip. We're heading down to Fort Myers, Florida. There are still those that are recovering from last year's hurricane, and we're going to help out with some of that. And so if you are interested and you're above the age of 14, you are welcome to participate. Just let us know that you're interested, and we're going to get you all the information. We're going to be having an organizational meeting here soon, and we'll keep you in the loop on that. And so this is open to anybody, and we would invite you to be a part.
All of this, as always, would not be possible if it weren't for you and the way that you support Peace Church. Last week we were able to pull off a beautiful Easter service that involved many, many musicians, many, many flowers, many, many decorations, and just a lot of worshiping together. And so if you were part of that experience, we want to thank you, and we want to thank you for all that you do for Peace Church day to day, week by week. And so if you would like to give to Peace Church today, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. Either on the front page of our website, top right corner, there's a button that says Give, or you can drop your offering in one of the baskets as you leave this morning.
But for Christina and I, thank you so much for being here today, and we hope you have a great day.
Well, good morning. So glad you've joined us today, whether you're in person or you're online, and I hope you're having a great day. I also hope you can enjoy some of the beautiful weather we have. In fact, do we just want to go outside? We can just call it a morning right now and go outside? Yeah. Yeah, yes was the wrong answer. The right answer is no, Scott. We want to listen to you. At least I'm not vain. Okay, we are starting a new series called Monsters Under Your Bed. Doesn't that evoke a great feeling to it? I mean, you remember as a kid of any time that I say as a kid, I'm giving you adults the benefit of the doubt here, of when it gets dark, the things that you see in the shadows or the noises you hear. Now, when I was growing up, I had like a tall bed, and it had like drawers underneath it and shelves underneath it, so there wasn't much of a under my bed. But I also knew that in my room, just a couple feet away on the other side, I had a closet door. And if that closet door was just ajar a couple inches at night, it's amazing the things that you see in that little slit in the door. It's like, did something move in there? Did I hear something? And maybe you've experienced that same thing too of there's something going on around me. And so this coming month, we're going to be talking about this idea of what are some of the things that lurk around in the shadows. And we're going to talk about things like loneliness and doubt and fear. But today I want to talk about this discouragement and this thing that kind of lingers under our bed. Now, I think discouragement, a lot of times, it's basically just a series of unmet expectations. You know, when things don't go according to plan. It was a couple years ago, my wife and I, we wanted to go to New York City. We've never been to New York City before. Have you been to, how many of you have been to New York City? Yeah, all of you except me. Okay. So we wanted to go, and again, this is the city that never sleeps. This is the Big Apple. You see this on movies and TV shows and the food channels, and you see, you know, all the sites to check out, all the iconic things to see and taste. And so we finally set up a trip, and we went there, and my expectations were so high. Like, I mean, this is one of the biggest cities in the world, and like an epicenter of so many good things and iconic things. And so we got a flight, and we were there in New York City. In fact, we had checked into the hotel like at 10 a.m. Like, we were on it. We had a full day ahead. And I'm a bit of a planner, if you know me. I had researched all of the places we should visit and a lot of the places we should eat. And these were like the nostalgic, recommended, all the high press was around it, and so we're going to go for it. And so we start our day, and we head over to Chelsea Market, which is like this nicer part of New York City, and there's supposed to be like these really nice upper scale shops and little food stalls and things, but because we got there so early, only 3 out of like the 100 stalls were open. And so you show up and you're like, there's nothing like walking through an empty mall. You know what I'm talking about? And so it's like, oh, that was a little disappointing. And then we go and we hit a little park and we see some things by the river. And like, again, you want to see something New York, so like the Statue of Liberty. But of course, the day that we come in, it is rainy and cloudy and foggy. The fact that when you're at the river, you couldn't even see the Statue of Liberty. And so you're like, Well, I found this place, and it's supposed to have the best tacos in New York City. And you're asking me, Scott, why would you go to New York City to get the best tacos? And I was saying, if you have an opportunity to eat the best tacos in New York City, then why wouldn't you do that? And so we went, this was Bon Appetit was recommending this, and so I went there, and we ordered one of every taco on the menu, because that's how we roll. And you eat all of them, and you're just kind of like, I look at my wife, and it's like, I can take you to a couple taco trucks over by the Columbus airport that are making so much better tacos than what we're having at the best place in New York. And so we're just, again, expectations and reality. Well, we went to Lombardo's Pizza. Have you ever heard of Lombardo's Pizza? It is the oldest pizza place in New York City, supposedly America. And so like this huge coal-fired ovens, and it's exciting. And so we sit down, and like, I'm a pizza guy. Well, I'm a food guy. And, and so you order pizza, and it's delivered, and you're like, you're just like, this is going to be amazing. And then you take a bite, and you're just like, Well, maybe it was just that bite. You take another bite, and it just wasn't that great. I'm like, okay, we got more places to go, and New York's also known for its hot dogs. I'm a hot dog guy. And so we went to Gray's Papaya and Papaya King, and you're thinking, Scott, those are papaya restaurants. Those aren't hot dog restaurants, but they're hot dog restaurants, I promise. And like these two old school nostalgic things, and we had one at each. And again, I'm kind of like, I grew up on the west side of Columbus, and over there there's Tony's Coney's, and I'm like, I'd much rather have a Tony's Coney's than these like famous places in New York City. And all right, so all right, let's hit the museums. We go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and even then we're like, I mean, it's not bad. I'm not trying to insult New York City, but I'm like, Chicago's is like much nicer. Even Cleveland's is much nicer art museum. And I'm like, and I realize how hoity-toity all of this sounds. I'm totally with you on that. But the problem is I had all these expectations that they're going to be so high, and when they're not met, you're just disappointed, aren't you? I mean, you know what that feeling's like when you're disappointed or you're let down, and maybe it's something like, I was just talking to someone a couple weeks ago, and they went through, their whole college to become a school teacher, and then after their first year realized they just don't like teaching. I mean, that's a struggle. Or maybe you've had this idea of a dream job. It's in your mind, and then you finally landed the dream job only to realize it wasn't that much of a dream job. I mean, there was a lot of parts to it that weren't as glamorous as you thought they might be, or quite as meaningful as you were hoping it would be. Or, maybe we just came off Easter holiday last week, and maybe you are the family entertainer, and everyone came over to your house, and maybe you had your kids and your grandkids, and maybe even some great-grandkids, and you have this idea of when you have family gatherings, you want the Norman Rockwell feeling. I want all my kids under, our one roof, and everyone just getting along, and we're around the table, and we're laughing, and we're having fun, and we're eating great food. When the reality was Easter came around, and a couple of your kids didn't show up, and the food wasn't quite as great because you overcooked the ham, which ham is already cooked, you don't need to recook it, and then 3 of the grandkids got sick, and you're like, it just didn't meet the expectations, and you had expectations, and then you have reality, and you're just disappointed. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about, because when you were picturing the perfect husband, and then you started to date that person you're sitting next to right now, and you even got married to them, and then about a week after you got married, your eyes were open, and you saw how they actually were, and you go from expectation to, meh. We only laugh because it's true. We all know this feeling, don't we? And, we laugh about it, but this essence of feeling of when expectations aren't met and we have disappointment, we don't like to be disappointed people. It's a struggle of a feeling. When life doesn't go the way we hoped it would, when our health doesn't match the expectations that we wanted, and when the career isn't there, and we have these ideas that when I reach this age, I want to be in these kind of relationships, or when I reach this age, I want to have this many children, or when I reach this age, I want to be this place in my career, when I reach this age, I want to be making so much money, when I reach this age, I want to have these types of experiences, and when I reach this age, I want to, my health and things to be in a certain way, but then life just doesn't happen that way. We didn't meet that perfect person, and no parent ever wants to have an unhealthy child, but there's probably many of us in this room that when we had kids, they just had unique needs and special needs and maybe health issues, and we're just like, oh, nobody ever plans on just having horrible physical problems. But when they happen, we just get so disappointed because it's hard. And it's a struggle, and it's like this dark cloud rolls in of disappointment, and that's just kind of where we are. Well, this is where we find ourselves, not just us, but if we're going to tie this into, if we go back a week, which is Easter, and even within the Easter story, we all know the big picture. Jesus rose from the dead on that Sunday, Easter morning, and we're like, woohoo, biggest day of the year, biggest church day of the year, celebration. We pull out all the stops with dinner and the flowers, and we even wear our nice clothes. We're back to normal this week, I see. And it's just, I'm joking. No, I'm not. We're comfy this week. And so it's the big deal. But if you were one of the disciples or the followers of Jesus, that very first Easter morning was not celebratory. It was not a big deal. It was actually full of disappointment, full of expectations that were falling off. And so what happened was that Easter morning there's some rumors going around because Mary, and Pastor Bill told the story last week, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and she saw Jesus, and she came running back to the rest of the disciples and told them, and some of the disciples went on to the tomb, but they didn't see Jesus. They just saw an empty tomb. And so now it's the question of what's going on here. Do we believe Mary? Is this good news? Or did someone steal the Bible? Was Mary, did she see something that she didn't actually see? What's going on? We have no instruction from Jesus on what we're supposed to be doing right now. And so that very first Easter morning, you have a gathering of the disciples. And it wasn't just like the 12 disciples. There was a larger group of people there that were kind of the core followers of Jesus. And they're gathered in this space and they're just like, what are we supposed to do now? This wasn't the big day it was supposed to be. And where we're going to pick up our story today is, and some of you know the story as it's a story on the road to Emmaus. And two of the disciples, they just say, well, we're gonna head out for a while. In fact, we're gonna head to Emmaus. It's about 7 miles away. We'll keep in touch. We just don't know what else to do right now. In fact, on top of everything else, you got to remember, even within Jerusalem, I mean, there was a mob mentality 2 days before that this mob crucified the person that you stopped everything for to live your life around, become a follower of Jesus. And it's like, so what do we do now? And so these two people, they're on this road to Emmaus, and they're just talking with each other about what had happened in the last 24 hours, what happened in the last 72 hours, and the whirlwind that it's been, and they're overwhelmed, and they're confused. And then all of a sudden, Jesus shows up and meets them on the road. But now here's the thing, and the Bible actually says this, that Jesus kept them from recognizing him. Now, my first thought is when this happened, did Jesus show up in like those Groucho Marx glasses with the mustache? Like, you don't know who I am? Or was it like the Jedi mind trick of, you do not recognize me? But the Bible says that Jesus kept them from recognizing him. And this is actually where we pick up the story in Luke chapter 24. It says this. It says, Jesus asked them, what are you discussing together as you walk along? And they stood still, their faces downcast. Again, this is not a good morning for them, even though it's the very first Easter. And it goes on to say, one of them, named Cleopas, asked him, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days? Let me give you a point of comparison here. If we go back in time to one of the darkest days in American history that most of us connect with, do you remember what it felt on September the 12th, 2001? Do you remember that feeling? There was a dark cloud over our country Everybody felt it. Life was different. And imagine on that day if someone came up to you and be like, why are you so downcast? What would have been your response? Has your head been in a hole somewhere? Do you really not have any idea what's going on right now? I mean, this was the same response they're giving to Jesus. Because he's saying, why are you so downcast? And like, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have happened here these days? I mean, I would almost guess they're a little frustrated. Like, are you kidding me? Well, then it goes on. And it says, about Jesus of Nazareth. And they replied, he was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. And then it says, the chief priests and our rulers, they handed him over to be sentenced to death. And they crucified him. But we had hoped. What is that? Expectation. We had hoped it would have been different. We had hoped this story would have played out in a completely different way. We had hoped this king that we were following was going to actually start to rule on a literal throne. We had hoped this person wouldn't have been crucified, but would have stepped in as the leader and healer of our nation, of this world. We had hoped that we would be a part of a celebration and a great new movement. We had hoped that would have been the case. We had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And then finally, and what is more, it's the third day since all of this has taken place. The reason why they even say the third day is in this context of, if you, within the Jewish religion, it was a belief that someone's spirit, when they died, would stay with the body for 3 days, and then after 3 days would depart. And so if there was ever a chance of resurrection, it would happen within that time. And so even these disciples are saying, we'd hoped, but even the last part of our hope was maybe within 3 days, but the timetable's passed, all hope is gone. And so what do we do? Because all of our expectations are now unmet. And so, I mean, you can feel the weight of this, can't you? The weight of this story. Well, as they continue on this road to Emmaus, and they still don't know who Jesus is, and Jesus is talking with them, and they start recounting some of the stories of, we know this woman named Mary Magdalene, and she went to the tomb, and she saw that Jesus was alive, and we didn't find, then other disciples went, they didn't see the body there, but there was talk of angels and people giving instruction, but we did not see Jesus. And so, I mean, they're just telling the story, as so often, whenever we go through a difficult time, we just kind of recount the story. Well, this happened, and then this happened, and things fell apart here, and I just don't get it here. Well, this is where we pick up again in our story. And it says, he said to them, how foolish you are. Now, I'm going to be honest here. I feel like Jesus is a little harsh, but I don't get a vote. But especially since he's kind of got the whole Jedi mind trick going on, it's like, what do you expect of these people? But he's saying, how foolish are you, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter into glory? And then it goes on. And beginning with Moses, this is important. And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he, being Jesus, explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. Okay, so something's going on here. Jesus starts to describe to these two people, these two disciples on the road to Emmaus, He goes, let me tell you a bigger story. Which you got to think for these disciples, all right, where does this story begin? You know, it's like what you don't know is a week ago when Jesus was coming in. No, when Jesus starts to retell a story, he goes back thousands of years and he says, do you remember Moses? Which of course they would know all the stories. But Jesus starts to retell a story beginning with Moses and then all the prophets after. He's saying, do you know that story of the Exodus where through Moses, God leads the people out of 400 years of bondage into freedom, into a promised land? And Jesus is saying, this is what the Messiah was doing, not just for Israel, but this is what he's doing for the world. This is what the Messiah is all about. And then he's going through the history of time and time again where God would take the brokenness of a people and bring wholeness. He would take the unhealth and make it healthy. And in all this, Jesus is saying it is the Messiah that is all of these are pointing to. And in other words, he's leading them all through history, and the story of history is leading up to the moment. All of that was a precursor for the actual coming of the Messiah, Jesus Christ, the one true Son of God that came and lived a perfect life and became a perfect sacrifice for an imperfect people. He's saying all of history is a part of this. In other words, what you're feeling in this moment, what you're feeling, this moment of discouragement, the moment of unmet expectations, this is just a moment. This is not what defines the rest of the story. And in fact, for Jesus, I believe he's saying, you know what? This isn't the end of the story. God is still writing this resurrection story. So Jesus walks them through the big picture. I'd imagine at this point, if you're walking 7 miles, this is going to be a few hours. They've been talking the whole time. The two disciples, they eventually come to their home, is what we get the idea. And it's like they turn in their front walk, and Jesus pretends to just keep walking on the street. And they're like, hey, do you want to, it's getting late. How about you come in for dinner? Stay with us. They're showing tremendous hospitality. Jesus agrees. And then they sit down to eat. And we get our final verse here, which is, if you're going to write a movie, this is how you tie all the pieces together. It says, when he was at the table, Jesus was at the table with them. He took bread. Now think about, what is this a callback to? This is a callback to when Jesus was celebrating the Passover with his disciples 4 days earlier. So when he took bread, he gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. He's going through the same motions that he did 4 days ago. And then it goes on. Then their eyes were opened and they recognize him. And then the baffling part of it all. And he disappeared from their sight. Evaporated. You've got to think, if you're those two disciples, what just happened? Wouldn't you? But all of a sudden, in that moment that Jesus, he took the bread, he blessed it, and he broke it, it was like everything came together in their mind, and everything they couldn't see before, they saw in an instant. They realized, oh my gosh, this whole time, Jesus was the one that was here. He was talking to us. He showed us the big story. And then what did they do? They immediately took off to go back to Jerusalem, the 7 miles. They know exactly where the disciples were all gathered, and they go find the disciples, and they share with the disciples, you're not going to believe this, but we were on the road to Emmaus, and the whole way we're talking to Jesus, but we didn't know it was Jesus. And he starts to tell us this much bigger story of what's going on and where he fits within the whole thing. And our story's not over. He is alive. He is alive. He is alive. And they're sharing this with the rest of the disciples. And again, it is changing the entire outlook for them. But they're going from this place of, in just a moment, to go from discouragement and unmet expectations to, oh my gosh, we are living out a single part of this much bigger redemption story. So what is the whole point of this story? I believe it's this. When you are discouraged because of what you thought should happen, didn't happen, in the way you thought it would happen, in the time frame you thought it should happen. So when we have expectations that go unmet, I believe that Jesus' response to that is like the response in the story. That he wants us to go from all of our focus being in this singular moment of discouragement and to start to zoom out and say, where does this fit within the much bigger story? Just like Jesus, he said, whoa, we're going to zoom way out. We're going to start with Moses, and we're going to work our way through history, the thousands of years that led up to the coming of Jesus, the Messiah, and how that fit for the disciples, especially within the last day, within the last 72 hours, and the last week. And all these events came together. Jesus saying, what we're looking at right now is just a moment in time in a much bigger story. He's saying, I'm telling a story that is taking humanity from a place of bondage to a place of freedom. And it's a big story. It's a big narrative. It's a story that transcends history. In fact, this is the largest story in the Bible. This is the theme of the scriptures in the Bible that we read. It goes from bondage to freedom. And Jesus is saying, I am the central focus of all these things. I've always been throughout history, and I will always be. And here's the thing. Sometimes when you and I, we go through a very challenging time in our life, a time that we're discouraged, sometimes we get to be a part of the resolve very soon. Like everything comes together quickly. You know, and like for these disciples, sometimes the resolve happens in 3 days. Sometimes the resolve happens in a week, or maybe it happens in a month. Or maybe the resolve happens in a season or a year. But sometimes the resolve happens within 40 years. Sometimes it happens within 400 years. Sometimes it doesn't get even resolved in this lifetime. The point of the story is that no matter where we find ourselves in this story, the story is not over. The author has not stopped writing. The journey into the abyss is not the end. Even to the point that the journey takes everything from you, including your life. That even that is not the end of the story. This is why we are followers of Christ, because we believe that even if this life doesn't end the way we think it should end, this is still not the end. This is why we have hope as followers of Christ of an eternity with him. He's saying, so even in the hardest of times, there is still hope of a redemption. There is a hope of a change, that this moment in time and the discouragement that it carries does not define everything. It is just simply a moment in time. The last chapter has not been written. There's a bigger narrative, a bigger plan. And somehow you, in this infinite moment, are still connected to an infinite story. So I want to close this way. If you are discouraged, just a couple things for you. Number one, I'm going to encourage you, remember that the story is not over. And what I mean by that is I want you to put your faith in action here, especially for those of you that are followers of Christ. It's remembering that this moment in which you're living is not the end. Just as Jesus showed up to the disciples and he said, okay, let's zoom way out. Let's go start with Moses and work all the way through thousands of years of history now. I want you to remember that you are part of a much bigger narrative. You are loved by a perfect God who is writing a story over your life. And even though it might feel like there's so many dark clouds and you're so discouraged and your health is not where you thought it should be and your life is not where you thought it should be and the circumstances that you find yourself in aren't what you'd ever planned for, the story's not over. So if you're finding yourself in your marriage is just in a really hard spot right now, I'm just saying things aren't over. There's a bigger story. If you're walking a child through a major health crisis, it's not over. If you're walking a parent through their last stages of life, the story's still not over. Wherever you find yourselves, I'm saying we need to know that there is a God who is writing a much bigger story on our behalf because he loves you. And he is not constrained even by time or life this side of heaven. There's a much bigger thing going on. And so I'm saying when we find ourselves discouraged, it's so easy for us to just focus on the singular moment. I know I do it just the same. I think what we've got to do is our best to pull back the zoom. Say, all right, is God writing a bigger story in my life? And then the second thing I want to encourage you to do is maybe adjust some of your expectations. I know when when I travel, it's you get an idea of how something's supposed to be, and I picture it when it doesn't happen that way. It's like, oh, I feel let down. But what if my expectations, again, I don't want to just get rid of expectations. But what if there is a modification that just says, God, I know that no matter what I walk into, my expectation is you're going to be with me. And just like the Bible says, somehow, some way, all things will work together for good. I'm not pretending I know how, but my expectation now is it's just going to work out. I remember one of the best things we had in New York City. We stumbled across a place. It wasn't on my map or my agenda, but we were walking through a place called Little Italy, and there was a pastry shop there. And we walk in, and we're like this tractor beam into this place. You know, you don't have the ability to not go in. There's these glass counters with hundreds of different types of things, and lo and behold, there was this pastry. It looked like it had 1,000 layers to it, and it was called a lobster tail, but it wasn't seafood. It was glorious butter, flaky layers filled with some pastry cream of love. And you get it, having never planned on it, having zero expectations over it, and it was probably the highlight. I know it sounds silly, but I think sometimes when we go through life, we create an expectation that is not realistic, it's not achievable, it's not real life. But yet so often we find ourselves living in a disappointment, living in a discouragement, living in a frustration. And I'm saying, all right, we need to rewrite how we have expectations. Maybe just, I'm along for the ride. We'll have an adventure. At the very least, we'll have a good story. And we're going to trust that there's a God writing a much bigger story. that somehow, some way, and I don't know how, but somehow, some way, he's going to work it out. And we can trust him. We can trust him. That's my prayer over you. I hope today that you will go from discouragement to maybe seeing some of the sun peer through the dark clouds that seem to be following you around. And the experience that the disciples had on that first Easter morning would be your experience as well. Let's pray. Holy God, I thank you. I thank you that the Bible is so full of characters that are relatable, imperfect, just like us, and that you encountered them and loved on them and taught them and revealed yourself to them. We're asking that you continue to do the same for us. Lord, for those of us that are discouraged in this moment, I pray that you help us. Remind us of the bigger story that you are writing over us, and that what we're experiencing in this moment is just a moment. It's not the definition or the whole story. So I thank you that you are here. I thank you that you're moving. And I thank you that you are encouraging our hearts. This we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
So we'd like to invite you all to stand as we sing this last song. You may recognize it. It's new to us, but it's been around for a long time, but it's just so perfect with everything that's going on right now. We thought we would share it with you and spice it up a little bit. So we hope that you felt blessed today. I know it's been a blessing to have you.
Hear your voice. I hold on to what is true, though I cannot see. If the storms of life they come and the road ahead gets steep, I will lift these hands in faith. I will believe. I remind myself of all that you've done, in the life I have because of your Son. Love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I am yours. I am forever yours. Mountains high or valley low, I sing out, remind my soul. Every promise comes my way when I feel your hands of grace rest upon me. Staying desperate for you, God, staying humble at your feet. I will lift these hands in praise. I will believe. I remind myself of all that you've done, the life I have because of your Son. Love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I am yours. I am forever yours. Mountains high or valley low, I sing out, remind my soul, I am yours. I am yours all my days. Jesus, I am yours. Sing this. I am yours. I am yours all my days. Jesus, I am yours, and I am yours. I am yours all my days. Jesus, I am yours, and I am yours. I am yours all my days. Jesus, I am yours. Love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I am yours. I am forever yours. Mountains high or valley low, I sing out, remind my soul, I am yours. I am forever yours.
I want to thank you for being here today. My hope is that you can leave here, enjoy some beautiful weather, and be encouraged. The story's not over, and you're in the very middle of it all. I want you to know I love you all. God bless you all. Have an amazing day.